Perfectly, Anton. Good afternoon.
Yes.
Great to hear your voice. It's Mike here.
Hi everyone, my name is Diana Mate. I'm founder of DM the PM, a tech consultancy focused on product management. I have over 10 years experience working and building digital products, launching across millions of customers. And now I'm focused on helping startups, but also mid-sized tech companies, especially B2C, in like marketplaces, um, subscription-based businesses to actually launch products that customers need and pay for. It's really easy nowadays to, well, it's a lot easier nowadays to build products, but actually, how do you identify those underserved needs um, and develop features that your customers would use or on a consistent basis, and how you're keeping them engaged over time? So that's where I really help startups that maybe already launched a product, but they're seeing issues with engagement. And I think you mentioned, Anton, around do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage products. And I think one of my biggest ones is it's okay to have assumptions and stuff from a place of um, your kind of own experience. But the key is to really identify and break down those assumptions and then find ways to validate these as quickly as possible, including validating whether your business model would work, validating whether um, the value proposition is something that resonates with customers. And they're all things you can do before you're actually building out a full product.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dana. I'm Adrian Burden, and I'm actually CEO of Blockmark Technologies. So we're a digital certificate management platform that we've put together to allow people to receive, check, and issue certificates. So that's a software as a service based in the cloud. I've also got experience. I run the Malvern Festival of Innovation each year here up in Great Malvern, where I'm based. And in the past, I've been involved in other technology products and services. So I was CEO of an anti-counterfeiting technology company, which involved both software but also physical products. A lot of people overlook the complexities of a physical product and what's that actually like to develop. I also have experience with sort of technology and operational road mapping, and I've done quite a lot of consultancy work with companies and organizations looking at their business in general, but how they feed new products and services into their plan. And then just on the do's and don'ts, a bit like Diana said, I think specifying what you need is really important before you start. So as Diana said, make sure you get some other input from potential customers. And I would also say, make sure you try and specify as tightly as you can what it is you're going to produce. Even if you're going to change it in the future, at least if you're getting someone else to help you make something, you've tied down those specifications early on. It makes it a lot easier when you need to make changes, but also it means that whoever's helping you or whoever you think is going to use the product or service has an idea of what the expectation is at the outset. But that's a sort of a do, and don't underestimate the time it takes to do that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Mike, please.
Hey, great to meet you all this afternoon. So I'm Mike. I love to go to networking events and help other startup founders with great business introductions. I speak to so many entrepreneurs, B2B salespeople, startup founders, and everyone seems to be looking for introductions to their ideal customers or business partners. And so it's my joy and pleasure to make those introductions at a very high level. So I've got 30,000 connections. People call me a super connector and a super networker. I've been to 1,000 networking events, and I'm always trying to help other people get those great introductions and referrals to their ideal customers. And so I just launched a startup. It's free to sign up, called introstars.com, which is a platform for people to simply make and receive great introductions to their ideal customers. So if you want some great introductions and referrals, happy to help. And I'm very excited to speak to everyone today about lead generation, about referrals, and about all the mistakes startup founders make when they go out and try to find some new customers. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Mike. I actually think we would have been much better having you on our Wednesday room on growth, although this is a great idea in terms of product and how to think about going to market via introductions.
Yep.
So thank you to all three of you. Just a quick reset of the room then. For all of you that are tuning in via YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there. So if you do have any questions for our brilliant panel, you'll need to be here with us on Microsoft Teams. It's a quick way you can do that. Either go to a link that I've put on all of those live streams, or simply go to our website, startup-to-scaleup.club, and look for today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 145. Once you've done that, click join, quick registration. You'll get an email to join us here in Microsoft Teams, and then you'll be here. For those of you that are already here, if you've got any questions, we're only going to be here, by the way, for the next 49 minutes. So my advice is put your questions in the chat now and don't leave it for last second, because 49 minutes goes much quicker than we'd like. So you simply type your question in the chat. I then unmute you like I just have with Becca. You get the floor and you can ask our team. In the meantime, perhaps if the panelists would like to drop in their LinkedIn, and if you want a quick introduction as well, although you have made your introductions, but if you want to put that in the chat, it might be a good idea, because the chats are saved along with the recording of this. And actually, not just the panelists, even the other people here. The idea is that each and every Q&A we have, we treat it as a networking opportunity, and I hope you will too. Now, we've had over 270,000 people reach us, or join us rather, shall I say, in almost 4 years that we've done these, and none of that would have been without people like Diana, Adrian, and Mike, so please feel free to show them your love. On the other hand, if your questions today are not on product and tech, please save them for the other events we run. We're currently doing 6 regular events: Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of the month it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup-to-scaleup.club. When you actually go there, you might want to join our WhatsApp group. There's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of the screen, and if you join there, you will not only join our community, but also get alerts to all future events we run. And last announcement before we start taking questions is that our Startup of the Month campaign ends this Friday. And the idea is quite simple. Just like Becca did, you need to join our WhatsApp group to enter the competition. But to do that, you need to go to our website, startup-to-scaleup.club, look for Startup of the Month. You've got to be a UK incorporated business within the last 3 years. Anyway, you'll see the rules there, which is very simple and straightforward, really. And what happens is that if you do get to become Startup of the Month, you'll be featured in all our events throughout April. I think it should be 12 or 13 of them. And not only get bragging rights, but also be sort of gain exposure to our community of founders, investors, operators, potential clients, potential collaborators. And most importantly, you'll also get sort of priority in asking questions throughout April. You can be the first person to ask questions and get help from our panelists. Now, without further ado, I hope you're able to talk, Becca. Can you talk?
Yep. I think
You are.
so. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Please introduce yourself and fire away with your question.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Becca from 36 Bus Productions. You saw our little video, and we're developing a wellbeing app based on reggae music. And because of the sort of healing properties of it, and it is a sort of underrepresented market, we believe, reggae lovers who want relaxation meditation apps. So The question is, what factors should we bear in mind when creating an app that's not only user-friendly, but will keep customers engaged enough to repeat subscriptions? What do the panel know about the psychology of habit forming as a result of their own experience?
I see. Brilliant, brilliant question, Becca. Thank you very much for that. What I'm going to do, we will start from the last person who did the intro. So we'll start with Mike. We'll then go to Adrian. And last but not least, we'll then go to Diana. Mike?
Perfect. Yeah. The user experience is always at the heart of everything you do. So, the most obvious thing is put yourself in the shoes of the user. If a user has no idea what your product is about, what it does, what will be the first thing they see on their screen, and kind of hold their hand every step of the way. So the way I've designed my own product, I had lots of conversations with our UX designer and UI designer. So UX, obviously user experience. It's really looking at every step of the way, having a little tip, a little tooltip appearing on your screen saying, hey, this is what you should write in here. This is what we recommend you put in there. So have a little tip or recommendation during the entire onboarding process. For me, that's really important. So we went a lot of, we spent a lot of back and forth between me as a product owner and the founder of the startup and our product design team. My other advice, for anyone working in product or as a startup founder, is not to work directly with developers building products, because developers typically are not very good at UX and UI design, but instead work with professional UX UI designers before developing anything, before building it. So redesigning a kind of storyboard of what that user journey looks like. So to answer the question, really, how do you make sure it's habit forming for a user? Is to send them weekly reminders, like a newsletter with tips and tricks, sending them recommendations, making it as personalized as possible. And then during the onboarding journey, maybe let the user pick a few things they're interested in. So you don't show them the whole user interface, but only show them what's more relevant to the things they've picked as their areas of interest. So again, that would be my advice.
Thank you.
Great. Yes. So, good points there, Mike. So I think also keeping the app or the service as slick as possible. So you want it to move quickly. You don't want there to be lag. Certainly, my experience is as soon as things start to slow down, people get bored and move away from it. So you want it to be efficient to use. That's part of the user experience. Something we found useful is to be constantly expecting to have to improve it. So with our product, I actually talk to our customers, our main customers that we interact with quite a bit, to find out if they're using it, the way I expect them to use it, but also have they found any problems in the way they're doing it. And then we'll feed that back in, and I'll work with the developers to try and iron out those issues. And what's really been fascinating is we've discovered people are using our service in a different way to how we expected. And I think, as soon as there's any complexity or there's any choice, you'll find that your customers will go down a different route to what you expect. Sometimes that leads to something extra. In fact, in one case, we had a customer that was trying to shoehorn something into one of our features that we then realized actually we could offer as a proper feature. They didn't have to kind of manipulate it in there. And we've rolled that out as a completely separate offering. So really, the key is obviously keep it efficient, keep it slick, but constant dialogue with some customers that are kind of your test or your vanguard. That's really helpful because every app is different. Every software application has its own audience anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Diana, please.
Yeah, I mean, definitely agree with a lot of the things that have already been covered. I think, especially if you're building an app, I think it's really important to have that aha moment very well defined, and as much as possible create a journey where it is really simple, it is really targeted to your ideal customer profile, and within their first journey, so the first time they open the app, they're able to actually get the value you expect them to get from the app, because I think now customers are getting a bit less patient with apps as well. I think you have like maybe in the first journey or max the second journey, you kind of want them to see the value of what they would be coming, why would they be coming back to the app, and how is this app different. So that's like the first thing, because a big part of apps is like, you know, do they see how this fits in their day-to-day life. So you need to kind of, maybe a big part of this is spend time with your customers and map out how are they currently solving this problem, what are the different touch points, and kind of have a clear view of what are you moving them away from. Because maybe, you know, if it's an app, obviously you're building an app around like meditation and relaxation, they probably already have a certain way in which they're doing things, but you're trying to pretty much get them to use your app. So there's definitely that whole thing of, okay, you're changing a existing habit, and then customers really need to understand, okay, why would I transition over to this? And kind of get that balance that, okay, the value I'm getting from this because it's simpler, or because my relaxation happens fast, whatever it is, they need to kind of get that within their first 1-2 journeys. And I think it's definitely a lot of tweaking, and I agree that you should have those open conversations, because just from metrics you won't be able to get the why or the how they're actually using it. But yeah, I think being very clear on how they currently solve the problem, and what you would want to do to transition them is important.
Brilliant, thank you.
Well, thank you very much to all of you for that. The only thing that I would like to perhaps, can I repeat a little bit what the amazing panelists here have said in terms of those sort of notifications, as far as that is concerned. One thing, and this is what the big sort of social media platforms do, Becca, where they nudge people with notifications of what their friends or people they're connected to, or people who they interact with, or people whose profiles they view mostly, and all that jazz. And they nudge them with notifications. Often that is even done now. Obviously, there's algorithms for everything, but there are times that at the beginning they would even do that manually. So find ways to maybe nudge people, either about activity from other people. So I don't know, you can say 15 people in your area are now listening to this feature, right? Or you can also, now that would be a bit more expensive perhaps, and the techies here hopefully can help with ideas, but you can do things in a certain way where if a person has actually viewed on their social media things that are related to any features you have, you can actually send an invite. But for that, you need to put adverts yourself out there on social media. So maybe that may come in for a later stage. Basically, they can then get a nudge from the app to say, you know, have a look at this. We now got this feature. But anyway, personally, in terms of repeat, I've found the most efficient to be notifications about people they know doing the same thing or doing something similar. That's been my experience. I hope that helps, Becca. Any follow-ups, anything?
Sorry, I'm just quickly trying to get the notes down. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I like the finding out what they're doing already, because my hunch is that quite a lot of the people might not be using meditation apps. They might just be listening to music. So yeah, and I think we've got some other ideas, you know, like maybe working with young musicians. So just sort of things that are kind of interesting and maybe aligned with, you know, their general ethos, which, you know, might help.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much for that, Becca, and thank you for joining us. Please do keep coming back. Would love to hear on your progress. And we'll now go on to the next question. But just before we do, perhaps we can go to Tom. Quick intro, And tell us, what is your biggest do and don't when it comes to early stage product and tech, Tom?
Hi everyone, thanks Anton. Sorry for being late. For me, so firstly, a bit of an introduction to myself. My name's Tom. I'm a co-founder and CEO at VerseCode. VerseCode is an MVP studio, so we work specifically with founders who are launching the first version of their product. We specialize in quick set scope builds with kind of transparent pricing and things like that. Since the end of 2022, we've launched, I guess, let's see, 87 tech products. So yeah, so I've obviously seen a lot of founders going down, positive routes, slightly maybe using some slightly more or exhibiting some slightly more negative behaviors as well. So I've kind of seen a lot of that. In terms of my biggest do's and don'ts, I think these are things I've mentioned on here before, but for me, the biggest do is do go and iterate your product before you built your product. And what I mean by that is you'll always have a jumping off point of what you think your product and offering is going to be. And I think for a lot of people, they think that's what they should, that's what they should start with in terms of building it. Actually, once you've got your initial idea about what your product should be, go and test it conceptually. Go and whatever you do, scribble it down on a piece of paper, even if you're just scribbling down the features, draw something up, DIY, Figma design, go out there and get that in front of your early customers, and iterate your product multiple times before you even build it. Your MVP should be an iteration of your initial thinking to begin with, and that will just kind of accelerate you on your path towards product market fit in the short run and the long run. My biggest don't is don't presume that just because you are an ideal client for your startup or for your product, don't presume that means that you know what your users want and what they need. We see this so often when people say they don't need to do their user research because they are their ideal customer. Obviously, it's great if you are a part of a group which fits within the demographics of your customer, but don't let that make you be lazy. Still go out there, have those conversations, and try and approach it from a point of learning rather than presuming. That would be so that's my big don't as well.
Well, thank you very much for that, Tom. Right here, we'll now go to another question. This was sent in to us. Remember, we've only got 32 minutes to go, so you might want to chop and hurry in asking questions because time will run out. So this one is a health tech founder. I don't know why, but it kind of sounds familiar, although having seen over 2,000 questions now, they all sound familiar. So this is from a health tech founder in Liverpool. She's got a nursing background. And she says, our problem is that creating a platform that connects patients with rare disease to specialists and clinical trials can be tricky. So the question is, we're struggling to decide how much of our platform should focus on patient support versus specialist search functionality. Boy, should we prioritize building a robust clinical trial matching system or focus on creating a community for patients to share experiences? What are the risks of focusing too heavily on either aspect at this early stage? Interesting. So I guess there's two main questions here. Number one, clinical trial matching system or community forum, and what are the risks of kind of leaning on either side too much? Just before I put this to my brilliant panel, I personally think you need to focus on what your sort of main value is. If you think you can do better the community side, then focus on that. But if you think there is more need and you can do better with the clinical side, then I would focus on that. Don't make it something for everybody. Try not to do too many things at once, because that is a recipe for disaster. And you can take it from me, because I've been there quite a few times, unfortunately. So focus, focus, focus. But let's hear a bit more detail from our panelists. So this time we can start perhaps with Diana, then Adrian, then Mike, and then Tom, please. Diana?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. I agree with Anton that focusing on one thing is going to not only, give you that clarity and focus, but also by focusing on one thing, you actually be able to launch it and learn a lot quicker. Because, but if you're not sure which one to choose between them, I think is like, okay, is this a point of kind of prioritizing between them? So I will definitely look at what is, where's your current position of the product that you currently have, what problems is it solving, and which kind of customer profile is it closer to, but also look at the reach that you have. So like, the community versus the trials, which one has a bigger reach, which one has like the bigger impact, or like you're thinking about the frequency. So I think you have to think about like, how can this product help these users? Can we actually build something that do we have the capability to help them all the way to the end of that journey, in terms of like, are you able to match them all the way through the specialist and further? So I think you have a few questions around the position and how far you want to take the product. And in order to decide between those things, I think one is like around the, okay, impact of those problems and also your business model at this stage as well. So it's like, okay, what are the things that customers or users are actually going to pay for? What does that look like? So I would definitely consider those lenses, and maybe this is around like your own market research or working closely with customers to map where the opportunities lie. But I would definitely say do this exercise, decide on one, and then validate if your product is well positioned to help them with those problems. But I think it's such a detailed question. I think you have to just choose the parameters that matter the most for your business and start comparing between those two.
Thank you very much, Diana. Adrian?
Yes, so I think those are good points, Dana. And in fact, one of the things I was going to say is I think it depends on your own business model and your own experience. And as you say, you also got experience as being a nurse. I suspect you have a gut feel as to what your network of customers or potential customers actually want. Is it more the kind of the community, or is it actually that directed service? Because you've obviously identified some kind of a gap that you want to exploit and explore in the market. So it's not a field that I'm, experienced in, but my advice would be start exploring with the customers or the potential customers in your network already, and try and understand what bit of your sort of two service offerings they would prefer. And then, yes, I would agree, try and focus on one of those first. You can always build out the other one as part of it as you go forward, but you really want to get that kind of minimum viable product, and you need it to fit with your business model. I mean, how is it? Are you going to be able to charge for this, or are people going to subscribe? What of those two things you've proposed are most appealing for somebody to subscribe to or pay for, to make your business sustainable?
Yeah, thank you very much, Adrian. Mike, please.
Yeah, I've got a slightly different take. I see this as a two-sided marketplace. Really, we've got one side with the clinical trial providers, and the other side are the patients. And so, like any marketplace, you really need to figure out which of the two sides is the hardest one to get. Now, is it super hard to get patients, or is it super hard to get clinical trial providers, or both? And try to speak to both sides. You definitely need the community first, just to understand what your customer behavior is, to build a product which suits their needs. So you need to build a community before you build a product anyway, just talking to customers, doing customer interviews and surveys. And when I say customer, I say people on both sides. So you need to interview patients potential patients of those clinical trials, see what kind of platform would suit their needs, and then speak on the other side, the clinical trial providers, what are their current challenges to find those patients with rare diseases, and is it difficult for them or not, and try to figure out the pain points of both sides of the marketplace. So when you build a platform, you're kind of suiting the needs of both sides. But like any marketplace, it's a chicken and egg. You need to figure out which of the two sides is the hardest one to attract the other side. You know, and I've got lots of experience building a marketplace. My app IntroStars is a marketplace as well with two sides. And so I understand the dynamics of it. And very often you're surprised. You think one side of the marketplace is harder than the other, and it turns out to be the opposite. and the only way to find this out is really to talk to lots of users and have that conversation with patients and with clinical trial providers, and then build a product afterwards. So it's not so much of prioritizing one over the other. You need to do both, but start by talking to users and understand them better to understand what would be the best way to build a platform.
Thank you, Mike. And last but not least, Tom, please.
Yeah, I think, no, I very much agree that generally from the product perspective, it's good to start with one aspect of this. You know, in terms of like peripheral functionality, you want to be guided, and you know, let's be kind of clear that it's very rare that a product is kind of known for doing two things, you know. So if it's like a great product for driving community, and you know, maybe there is a big problem out there that people who are in this situation are isolated and need community, like that's a very valid product. It might also be the case that they need to find clinical trials and there's no way of them currently doing that. That's a very valid problem to solve as well. But it is fairly rare that a tech product is known for doing two things which are so separate in kind of at the same time, but obviously not unheard of. But so I think, you know, from that perspective, it is worth trying to hone in on one of those to begin with. I also think, just from my experience of seeing founders taking products to market, new products, you know, you don't have a reputation, you don't have name recognition. All you're trying to do at that stage is explain to potential early adopters what you're doing for them, what your product will solve for them. It's much easier to do that if there's one thing you're doing. Just from a commercial perspective, away from the product side of things, if you're going to early adopters saying, and you can go to them and say, oh, yeah, are you someone who's lonely in this situation? We've got a product which is a community for you. Or are you saying, are you struggling to find clinical trials? We've got a product which is doing that for you. The moment you start having multiple value propositions for an early stage product, you can start to confuse early adopters and create a little bit of apathy there. So I recommend avoiding that from a commercial perspective too.
Thank you very much to all of you. And I'm going to go out there on a limb here and stick my neck out. But personally, again, making assumptions are the mother of all wrongdoings, they say. But personally, I think but again, this depends on your strength and your knowledge and your ability to, you know, which of those two you can do best. But I think to run a community, you need a ton of money to get consumers one by one interested in the idea and all that jazz. And by the time you've started showing some traction, you probably would have run out of money and all will to go forward. So my advice, actually, again, I know I'm making an assumption here, and I shouldn't, but I would say stick with the clinical. Start with that. If you want, you can have the community side on the side, kind of the sidelines of, you know, people that actually end up using these clinical trials or getting in touch with these consultants and so on, or these providers. You know, give them an opportunity if it doesn't cost you too much for them to have a community side of things. And guess what? You can have that community side of things by a bleeding WhatsApp group. So my advice is probably focus on the clinical trials. And if you'd like any more detail, please do bother to join us interactively and live next time. And the panel here might be able to ask some follow-ups and kind of get to the root of things as well. Rightio, we now only have 20 minutes to go. A quick reset of the conversation. This is Startup Product and Tech Q&A. It's our 145th session. We've been doing these for almost 4 years, where over 270,000 people have joined us and over 2,000 questions were posed to our panels. The idea is that, unfortunately, over 90% of startups fail. And the top 3 reasons for that are 1, market fit, 2, running out of money, and 3, not having the right people. And there couldn't be anything more important about your ability not only to survive, but actually thrive, than your ability to build your products and tech right. And that's why we've got 4 brilliant experts with us today. And none of this would have happened without them, by the way. So please feel free to show them your love and follow them on LinkedIn and so on. Remember, they do this for free so that they don't have to keep doing other stuff for free, and bear that in mind. On the other hand, as far as today's questions are concerned, it could be on anything to do with product and tech. Let's say from your product roadmap to your design to your prototype, testing, automation, landing pages, full stack, apps, low to no code, launching your MVP, and anything in between or beyond for that matter. There are no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. All you have to do is type your question in the chat here on Microsoft Teams. We'll then give you the mic and you can ask the team. On the other hand, for those of you that are tuning in via the live streams, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there. So if you want to ask our panel, you need to join us interactively via Microsoft Teams. You can either use the links that you have on all of those live streams, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, or simply go to our site, startup-to-scaleup.club, look for today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 145. Then you click join, quick registration, you'll get a link to your email, and you can join us here where you then put your question in the chat and we'll give you the mic. By the way, if your questions today are not on product and tech, please save them for the other events we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month it's legal, and third Friday of the month it's finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup-to-scaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, why don't you join our community of founders, investors, and operators? Join us on WhatsApp, and you'll also get alerts to all future events. Now, without further ado, I think we can go through another question that was sent in to us. Okay, this is a fitness app in Manchester. It says, our fitness app in Manchester lets users access personal health data, and we're aiming for a robust authentication system that keeps this data safe. We're getting ready for Series A, and whilst budget constraints exist, security is non-negotiable. What are the most cost-effective ways to implement secure authentication and identity management? And should we prioritize adding 2-factor authentication early, even if it adds friction to user onboarding? Personally, I think 2-factor is not a great idea at the beginning, but I'd love to hear it from the experts. So this time we can start with Tom, Adrian, Diana, and then Mike, please.
Yeah, I think, it's slightly unclear from this. I guess what kind of level of secure authentication or identity management would be required. I know there's mentioned this is a fitness app. Let's use access personal health data. I don't know if that's accessing their own personal health data or other users, but effectively in terms of authentication systems.
My assumption here would be that they're accessing their own data, and perhaps if they're using any service providers or anything, maybe they're accessing data as well. But to me, it looks like it's the people's data, i.e. the users' data.
Yeah, I mean, so data security comes under, it would be a slightly different thing. But anyway, I mean, so in terms of user authentication, like, to be honest, if it's something you're concerned about, I don't think two-factor authentication is a massive barrier in this day and age. I think people are fairly used to it. If they're getting ready for Series A, I presume you already have some quite substantial traction. Wouldn't want to make any assumptions on that, but I suppose I would suggest that if this authentication is or user authentication is a big concern for you, two-factor authentication is fairly standard these days. If there's, this is again depending on what kind of targets you're using, of course, things like SSO, company logins, or even using Auth0. Those are the things which people use, which obviously are slightly more off-the-shelf options. But I guess it depends how often you want people to use it. In terms of things like two-factor authentication, you don't have to have it so that people are using 2FA every single time they log in. It could be just at kind of certain cadence, or even sometimes if they're just creating their account, whatever it may be. So I think there are other things that other ways you can approach it. To me, just kind of off the bat, without knowing anything about this platform, if someone is just looking to access their own data, use authentication, I don't think you need to be too worried about that side of things. But I guess it depends how sensitive this data is. But yeah, I think perhaps some of the more technically minded members of the call can dive in a bit deeper as to what the step-by-step approach should be here.
Thank you very much, Tom. Yes, Adrian.
Yeah, so well, I would certainly recommend using 2FA. I think nowadays people are expecting higher levels of security, and particularly with their own personal data. So health data is obviously personal and usually sensitive to some extent. Also, I think it protects yourself. Things like Cyber Essentials that you can get for your company would expect to have 2FA on services that you offer to people. And if you do fall foul in the future to some kind of privacy breach or some issue with GDPR, then the fact that you had put 2FA in place would help you show that you were taking data seriously and protection seriously in your product. So, and I would imagine that your Series A investors are also going to be looking at your sort of security protocols. So, I mean, 2FA is relatively easy to add. It does depend, as well, as Tom was saying, I mean, it depends on what you're doing. Is it software as a service in the cloud? Is it a web app? Is it an iOS app? And so on. And if it's on a mobile app, you can probably make use of some of the other authentication systems that are that are on offer, like the face recognition or the fingerprint recognition that are built into the iOS system or the Google Android system. So I would definitely take it seriously. I think by asking the question, you're already obviously having these thoughts, and if you can put it in place, I would recommend it.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Diana, please.
Yeah, I don't have as much to add to this. I think my question would be, how often do you want or do you expect the users to use this app? Because if I'm imagining if it's like, I don't know, like sleep tracking or whatever the data is, but if you want customers to use it every day, then yeah, there is that question around the friction of, okay, do I want to do two-factor authentication if you expect users to use this regularly? So that's my only consideration. But in terms of the security, again, if that is the most important thing, then you'll have to trade off. And maybe there's a way to like experiment. Can you launch a trial with customers? Like, what is your biggest risk? That people are not going to log in, that people are going to forget the password, and then do a trial, like an experiment with a percentage of them, test it out to see whether the metrics are moving or if it's having the negative impact you expected. But I think, again, you have to decide, this is now a point of around the strategy and the focus for the business. If it's security, then you can override the user experience and the friction because of that. So it's kind of based on your strategy.
Interesting points. Thank you, Diana. Last but not least, Mike, please.
Yeah, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and ask users to create a login and password and have to secure it, I would strongly recommend to focus on what people already use for authentication, which is, of course, Google authentication, Apple authentication, LinkedIn authentication, and focus on those because they already have all the security measures in place. So you don't have to put an extra layer of security, like it's all kind of part of their authentication APIs, which are very easy to use. So for my app, for example, we simply use the LinkedIn authentication API, and like to log in, it's through one click. Use your standard LinkedIn login and password. So it's typically already saved in your passwords. From a user perspective, it's a very simple onboarding process. One click, you're in. And again, the user doesn't have to create a new login and password and remember which one they use, etc. So again, my strong recommendation is to use existing authentication APIs, Google, Apple, and LinkedIn. And if it's more of a consumer app, then even Instagram or Facebook or something like that. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Thank you very much to all of you. Can I ask you, especially some of your most sort of the more techies of the panel, which I'm assuming would be Adrian, Tom, and then Diana, and maybe even Mike to a certain extent, but what sort of costs are we talking about here? If somebody has it in the cloud and they use third-party authentication APIs or apps to, let's say, have a two-factor authentication, is there any rule of thumb in terms of prices, Adrian?
Well, I mean, we use two-factor on our system. I don't think we actually build anything specifically. I think probably it will depend on the APIs you use, the cloud system. But don't forget the sort of services that Mike was talking about. They actually want you to use those as well. So, logging in using LinkedIn or Facebook often is encouraged because you're staying connected with those platforms as well. So they don't tend to charge for that service.
I hear. That's interesting. Thank you. Anyone else, Tom or Diana and Mike?
I'm happy to answer this. This is Mike. I'm happy to answer this. So all these third-party authentication APIs are all free of charge. They never charge for that. So it's always free to use any API from Google, from LinkedIn, from Meta. That's always free of charge. There's zero charge for that. And about your hosting, if you're a startup, most cloud providers like Amazon and Google Cloud give you free credits if you apply to their startup program. And it's very easy to apply. It's like just a quick form to fill out. It takes like 5 minutes. And they give you like $5,000 of free credits or even more. So for my app, for example, we pay zero. We pay zero in hosting, zero in authentication until we reach a critical mass. And then you start paying, of course, for cloud storage and hosting, etc. But most early stage startup pay zero. Like they get free credits from Amazon, from Google. The API for authentication is free. So again, there's really no cost.
Very cool. And I'm going to get to a question that just rose from this in a second, Mike. But in terms of this then, so going back to what Diana mentioned, would it be okay for her and others in this similar situation to just give people the opportunity and test that? We now have a two-factor authentication. Would you like to use it and see how many of them do end up choosing that? That's number one. And two, what do you think of the idea of A/B testing? Maybe a bit like what Diana said, reach out to, I don't know, a small percentage and say, would you like to use it? And with the other ones, just carry on as it is. Wouldn't that be best? Especially since, like Mike said here, most of these seem to be free. A quick sort of answer, maybe we can start with Tom, then Mike, then Diana, then Adrian, please.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is a difficult thing to advise on, to be honest. I think, yeah, I can think about the products that we build, and we generally build kind of, to begin with, sort of more manual sort of authentication processes, and if people need things like 2FA, that can be built using things like like SMS notification and email notification services. So yeah, I think I will defer to the more technical members of the call on this one.
Fair enough. More technical members. Quick yes or no. What do you reckon of this?
Well, I can just jump in and say, I know I'm not sure I'm in the right order, but on our system, the 2FA is actually optional, so you can add it if you want. Obviously, we recommend it in our sort of knowledge base. And the other thing I would say is, I mean, we use authenticator apps. So what that means is they add their user and password, and then they set up the 2FA with their authenticator app, which is on their phone. And, you know, that's where you synchronize it with the QR code, and then it just gives you a 6-digit code to log in when you need to. I should also say that on our, I was going to say on our platform, it doesn't log you out straight away each time as well. So you can choose if you want to be logged out each day, or, you know, after a few days before you need to re-enter the credentials.
Interesting point. I use Authenticator for everything. So, okay, very good. We now have a question. I just remembered a question from Tanaka. Tanaka, are you able to talk? I've unmuted you a while ago.
Absolutely. It's incredible to be here. So I asked this question because I was considering the constraints that I'm facing within my environment. And
I
the
hear
need to,
Tanaka, can you make a quick introduction and then go quickly into the question, because we've only got a few minutes before we wrap up. Go ahead, buddy.
My name is Tanaka, and I run a digital transformation agency. And it's always great to hear about technology. I'm fascinated about technology. So what drove me to ask this question to this amazing panel that is providing vivid and clear information and strategies, I was thinking about my startup environment, and I wanted to proactively address the performance, security, and user experience that I have. And so what I was concerned about is how can I leverage a unified observability platform that incorporates AI-driven anomaly detection and a full client-side data capture to achieve comprehensive visibility across my entire technology stack. For example, let's say imagine a rapidly scaling software as a platform startup experiencing intermittent performance slowdowns reported by the users that are providing services. How would a unified observability platform enable me and my clients to proactively identify the root cause? It might be a specific microservice bottleneck, who knows, or just a database query. So what I need is to implement targeted fixes to ensure that a consistently smooth user experience is facilitated, while also at the same time detecting and mitigating potential security vulnerabilities in real time.
Right, so Tanaka, thank you very much for that. It sounds like the question was made by AI. I really have no idea to help you here, but hopefully my panelists, before I let them go, might be able to come up with something. So let's start with Adrian, Diana, Tom, and Mike. Any quick thoughts on this?
Yeah, quite a complicated question. I think it really depends on the service that you're using, you know, like Google Cloud Platform, Azure, and so on. A lot of those platforms have lots of tools. Some of them are AI driven. Some of them are forensic analysis and real-time analysis. There's whole dashboards there for you to monitor. And really, it's all about understanding what you've set up first, and then what it is you want to try and understand. I know he gave a long list of things, but yeah, I think it all is dependent on the platform, and it's not an easy thing to do.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Tom?
Yeah, I think kind of echo those thoughts, really. This is a complex question. I think it's also, hopefully you have enough of an understanding of the journey that your users are going on to do some of this, I guess. And I know you're talking about kind of implementing sort of automated visibility and automated monitoring, but I guess, you know, the first step is to get that bigger picture of where those potential bottlenecks might be, or where those issues might be, and then kind of pinpoint on those. But I guess on top of that, I probably don't have anything much to add on what Adrian said.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, Diane, I just realized I had asked you to go after Adrian. My bad. Any thoughts on this, Diana?
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I think this is where I don't, again, complex question, but I think it's a matter of just because technologically we can do a lot of those things. I think it's like then a question of what format and what version it's valuable to the user. Because kind of like what is the decision making, or what is it that you actually want people to do on the back of all this information, and then the trick will be translating this into like a version that is making things as easy as possible, from what I understood. But yeah, so it's a bit of like definitely put a lens of that of the end user when thinking through this.
Good point. Thank you, Diana. And last but not least, Mike, please.
Yeah, it really depends on the framework you're using. So if you're using Google Cloud or Amazon Web Services or another backend service provider, typically they have all of these tests built in, and all the frameworks provide all these features as part of the package. So it really depends. It's kind of it's a bit too vague of a question. I think you have to dig into the detail. Is what you're building, how you're building it, what tools you're using, and then there's lots of out-of-the-box packages to test all your performance, your vulnerabilities, the user experience. Like all of that can be tested by these frameworks. So again, I think the question is a bit too vague. We have to dig into the nitty-gritty detail of the exact thing you're building to better understand what tools you could use. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much to all of you. Tanaka, just based on what my panel is saying, personally, I would do two things. Have a look at the dashboards that these cloud providers have, and maybe speak to their customer care team. And two, make a list of a few people on LinkedIn that you can reach out to on LinkedIn, i.e. people that have worked in similar businesses to yours, and reach out to them and ask them, what are some of the bottlenecks and challenges I need to foresee and think about here? And then you are hopefully more able to be a bit more precise on what to look out for. And just before I let everyone go, Mike, how doable and how often have you seen it happen where one startup can get credits from more than one cloud provider and kind of maybe use parts of their data with one and other parts with others? And if the others here want to add anything as well on that.
I mean, it's very easy. You can apply to as many cloud providers as you want, and they're all going to give you free credits. The problem is it's very hard to build a cross-cloud platform. Typically, when you build a startup, you're going to pick one service provider, one cloud provider, and do everything with them, because your code base will be with them, your hostage, your storage, your authentication. It's kind of really hard to split the logic among different cloud providers. I'm sure technically it's possible, but it would just be so much overhead to manage. One relationship was Amazon, and a separate relationship was Google, and a separate one was another cloud provider. So that's really not typical at all. I mean, typically a startup will go all in with Google or all in with Amazon Web Services. That's the way it typically works. And both of them offer really good cloud credits to startups.
So more headache by trying to be clever than by just going all in. All right. Well, we are now 4 minutes over the line, and I'm really sorry, team, that I've kept you this long. Does anybody want to say any parting words before I let you go? Let's start with the lady of the house, Diana, and then perhaps Tom, Adrian, and Mike.
Well, it's Adrian here, because I think Diana and Tom have actually just both left. I saw something pop up. So just from me, thanks very much for great questions. It's great to be part of this. Thank you, Anton, for hosting, and nice to see you again, Mike. We'll catch up again soon.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Yes, Mike.
Fantastic to hear you all today. Great questions, great panel. Great to hear your voice, Adrian, again. So yeah, I'd love to take up anyone who wants to get a bit more mentorship about their startup, about the product strategy. There's some great introductions. Check me out on LinkedIn. It's Super Mike on LinkedIn. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much to everyone that tuned in today. Those of you on the live streams, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. And by the way, please bear in mind that next time you actually want to join us here on Microsoft Teams, because it's interactive and you can get to ask your questions to our panel yourself. Now, just a quick reminder, we run 6 regular sessions: Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month UK startup law, and third Friday of the month UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup-to-scaleup.club. When you actually go there, you may also want to join our community. It's made of founders, investors, operators, and others in our ecosystem. And you'll also, by joining the WhatsApp group, you'll also get alerts to all future events. A quick reminder that our Startup of the Month competition ends this Friday. So if you want to enter it, you need to do so by Friday. The idea is quite simple. One lucky winner will get featured in all our events in April. I think it's either 12 or 13 that we run in April. And you'll not only get bragging rights, but also gain exposure to our community of founders and investors and operators and supporters, and hopefully potential clients, investors, collaborators, employees, and all that jazz. You need to enter. Go to our website, startup-to-scaleup.club. Check the menu out for Startup of the Month, and then you'll see that it's quite a simple and straightforward process. And I guess, as far as my part in words, just remember the startup journey can be both challenging but also quite exciting. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else. Otherwise, hopefully see you tomorrow for Startup Growth. Have a great afternoon, and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.